the normalization of policy in the US and the impact that it's having. How do you see that trajectory, and does the inflation data that we saw overnight change your perspective?
I think it's in line with what our economists have been looking at in terms of the inflation we felt in the first half of the year would be higher, and that would lead to the Fed certainly putting hikes in early in the year and probably some consecutive hikes, and then maybe in the second half of the year we'll start to see that inflation coming down. I think from an Asia perspective, thinking about the Chinese equity market, there are probably a couple of items to pick up on there. One, as we see that broader Greater China market, we've seen a number of those more growth-oriented stocks sell off in reaction to this kind of change or move towards a rate hiking cycle. But again, there's been a bit of solidity more generally in the China market, given that it remains a kind of highly domestic market in terms of the flow, and also quite a lot of the stocks much more exposed to domestic factors. So a little bit of a twofold step there in terms of those that have sold off more to the rate hikes versus a slightly more robust response in some of the domestic plays.
Well, what about the comments that Sam was making a moment ago about some increasing noises coming out from the market that perhaps the Chinese government's response in policy terms is being questioned as to whether it's being quite as effective as they hoped?
I think we're starting to see that come through. We saw the industrial production numbers slow down from November to December quite markedly. But we also saw that the rhetoric rose in terms of the ability and the willingness to support the economy. And it was interesting in that prior section talking about that kind of volume of loan growth, and you saw that supported particularly the property real estate sector quite a lot during the first month of this year. So you had energy, real estate, some of those more, I might say, traditional sectors having quite a strong first 6 weeks to the year, whereas the growthier sectors really struggling a little bit as we move forward.
We're seeing the real estate index